Good evening. It is Monday, July 8th, 2024. Welcome to episode 70 of Porterhouse and Teal Live. Tonight's broadcast will be covering homestead news, Q&A, and Did You Know? We'll also have a segment asking you to decide if a random quote came from a liberal or conservative, the weekly poll with the results from a multiple choice question asking your gardening preferences. And tonight's main topic, we'll be talking about a number of issues ranging from the past, present, and future, covering some cultural values, societal changes, and political observations. And what a week it's been. It's been really, really warm around here. And we're going to try this thing with the air conditioning off to start with, just because we don't want it to provide some, background noise that's unnecessary. But it is extremely hot outside, and we've been running our ACs all day and trying to stay cool. It's something that's happening here on the West Coast. Many people are experiencing these type of temperatures all over the West. And I think, what did it get to the other day, Rebecca? I think it was, 120?
On Saturday, it was 120.
Yeah. And every day it's been, 117 and another day of 115. I'm not exactly sure what it was today, but again, another oppressive day. And so, we're going to start this off with the AC off, but no promises moving forward. But how are you this evening?
I am good. There was a project that I was hoping would happen. And of course, it required work from you and my son-in-law. But today you guys started it. So that was pretty exciting.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not complete, but hopefully in this week, we will have a new pool slide and the grandkids will love it.
Yeah. That's something that's needed to be done for a long time. And she finally went around and spent the money and bought one. They're about, $4,000 was that thing? How much did that thing cost?
That particular one I was able to find on a site, and I got it for almost half that.
Okay.
But yes, they do. They run about $4,000.
Yeah, it's stupid, man. And then they don't sell them, like the one that you had from 20 years ago. They don't make anymore, so you can't just bolt the thing onto the existing footprint. You have to completely redo it and cut it out and start all over, I guess, essentially. But that's what we started on today a little bit. And we're going to be moving forward on that. But welcome, everyone, to tonight's broadcast. And we'll see how things progress this evening. But let's get into liberal or conservative, where I'm going to read you a quote from somebody, some random person from history's past. And we will see if that person, if you think it's a liberal or conservative. This is a quote that I actually like quite a bit. It makes me think when I read it. It's a pretty short quote. But it goes like this: antisocial behavior is a trait of intelligence in a world full of conformists. So let me read that one more time. It says, antisocial behavior is a trait of intelligence in a world full of conformists. So who would you say that is, Rebecca, if you were to assign that to somebody of any political persuasion, left or right?
Well, depending on, I guess, the time at which it was said. So if that was something that was recently said, I would say that antisocial. Oh, gosh. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm at a loss.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll give that some more thought moving forward. And you guys in the chat, if you would consider that and see what you think about it. I think it's actually a pretty unique quote. Makes me think when I read that. And there's some things in there that resonate with the way that I view the world. So, I don't know. We'll see moving forward. But yeah, as I said, man, it is just super hot. And one of the things that I've really been, I guess, focused on, I talked a little bit about this last week, but what I didn't really talk about last week, and it's something that is certainly necessary, is just keeping everything hydrated, including myself. It's so important. I'm probably drinking right now, about a gallon of water at least a day. And then I'm adding electrolytes to that as well. And so if you're somebody who's out working and you're in these type of extreme temperatures, obviously you're going to be sweating a lot. obviously your body needs replacement and replenishment. So one of the things that I do is I add electrolytes to my water. Not only am I out usually sometime throughout the day exercising, which is going to deplete, my fluid, but you're also going to sweat out a lot of sodium. You're going to sweat out a lot of potassium and magnesium, and then that can affect you later as far as your recovery. So it's just something that I focus on, and I make sure that I add that to my water when I'm rehydrating. I use a product, and this isn't anything that I'm affiliated with, so I'm not trying to sell anything here, but there's a couple of decent products out there if people are interested. There's one called LMNT, and the other one that I actually use is Redmond Real Salt, and it comes from an ancient seabed in Utah. They mine it from an ancient seabed that's inland, but it used to be years and years ago a part of a seabed that is where they mine this salt. And so the beauty of that is that there's no bullshit in it. There's no microplastics or anything like that, like you're going to get with today's sea salt that's going to be mined out of the ocean. And so it's pretty pure. It's got a lot of good stuff in it. And that's kind of what I've been doing with my protocols, but just thought I'd mention that. And then again, around here, it's been rough week. A lot of people in this zone have had a lot of problems with the pest load that we've seen this year. It's been a really bad year with grasshoppers. I mentioned that last week, but it's continued to affect people here in this zone. Fortunately, I have been able to combat that, and that's partially due to the fact that my plants are gilded around here. My perennials, I tend to gild. I tend to not plant those things in isolation. And that's very important so that you're not putting all your eggs in one basket, and you're providing support to the plants that you actually want to protect. And so I'll probably be doing a video on that, showing the value and the importance upon, gilding your important plants, particularly like fruit tree gilds. And so that probably will be in a couple of weeks. I'll probably be putting something out a little bit more detailed on that. But just the water has been running on the property from the moment I get up until generally when I go out. There's been supplementary water that's been out because of those extreme temperatures. There's been a lot of loss that people have seen, not only with the grasshoppers, but with that heat. It's just scorching a lot of stuff that's just not hardened off for 120 degrees through multiple days. So that's kind of what I've been focusing on a lot this week. Also too, whenever things are like this, how you doing, Skanes girl?
Hey, Skanes girl.
Good to see you this evening. Whenever things are like this, it just causes me a lot of concern with regard to the fire hazard. And, I've got that front pasture that I've been concentrating on this week, actually trying to mow and get a little bit of that down because I just don't have the livestock to stay ahead of that this year. So that's something else that here on this property I have been focusing on. Harvest wise, we have put up all of our onions. I started the harvest probably about 3 weeks ago, and they've been going through their drying process, and I've done some triage on all of those and sorted out the ones that weren't going to be suitable for storage. And then I've just recently, I think it was 2 days ago, I brought all of the onions in, and we've got them now stored inside in climate control. And I will have a video this weekend talking about, how to assess your onions for storage or for harvesting and then, what you're going to be looking for as far as, putting them up for storage. So that's going to be forthcoming this weekend. Also, I pulled out all of the potatoes that we've grown here this year, at least for our summer harvest. And then again, we'll be planting potatoes again in the fall. But we've got a pretty substantial harvest with the potatoes. And I think we actually did quite a bit better with the onions this year and garlic. We pretty much crushed that. I mean, we got probably more than we're going to be able to use before it goes bad. So I think what we will be doing is probably taking some of that and trying to maybe freeze dry it and putting it up in that way, because there's no sense in allowing any of that stuff to go to waste. I grew 168 pounds of 6 different varieties of onions. And I don't want to see any of that stuff go to waste, but it's been harvested.
Yes, I came into bags of onions on my kitchen floor.
Yeah.
And then again today, or was it yesterday? Bags of, actually, I think it was today, bags of potatoes on my kitchen floor.
Right. Yeah, no, it's that time of year. We've been harvesting quite a bit of stuff out there. She's been putting up pickles, been doing dill pickles, as well as putting up tomatoes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's just going to be a continual process of, when they're ripe, we'll bring them in and allow them to kind of further ripen on the kitchen counter. And then once we get a substantial amount where she wants to run a batch, she'll go ahead and start canning. But you were doing some canning today as well, right? I
was, in between everything else.
Yeah. And so one other thing too was, we're going to get that sheep out of here tomorrow. Tired of feeding him. And so I'm going to run him down to the auction and get him gone. And then we'll just be down to a few less mouths to feed. So you sad about that?
Not really.
Yeah, me neither.
I haven't paid much attention to him. If it was a while back, this is kind of changing the subject a little bit, but a while back we had a calf that was born. He was kind of a bummer calf, and I had to go out and he couldn't stand. So I'd have to pick him up and get him underneath the mom cow and help him nurse. And I'd actually have to hold him until 4 days in. And it was obvious that he wasn't going to be able to ever walk. And he didn't have a bowel movement unless I picked him up. Mm-hmm. So I also had to, Eric was gone on a fire. So I had to load him up and take him down to the vets and have him put down. But in that, there was a bonding process. And so I was sad about him. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's just the way it goes. Sometimes, animals are not meant to be viable. Sometimes you can nurse them back to health, but typically speaking, when you have animals like that, they're probably not going to make it. And, people wind up putting a lot of effort, and sometimes they dump a lot of money into animals that, it's kind of needless in a sense. Nature does what nature does sometimes for a reason. And you have to just realize that when you're on a farm and you have animals. I know people look at them as if they're pets, and, we're going to take our chicken down to the vet and get them taken care of because it's, whatever. But, it's like, it just doesn't pan out sometimes. And it's always something that people don't always consider for the health, or maybe not the health, but the, what's the animal have to go through in order for you to feel good that, you're doing all that you can for the animal. Sometimes it's better just to put them down. So,
yeah, I actually built splints for his legs because he couldn't stand. So it was all 4 legs, and they were going to contract if I didn't do something to keep him out, in hopes that he would eventually be able to bear weight, but he couldn't. So, so
live and learn, right?
Yeah.
Also too, I just put this out on the community page on the channel, but a few weeks, probably about 3 weeks ago or so, I did it's a webinar that I did with the South Dakota Specialty Producers Association. Had asked me to be the speaker talking about biochar. So if that is something that you're interested in learning a little bit more about, it is now on the community page on this particular channel, as well as I've linked in the show notes of this broadcast. So click on it if you want to take a look at it, but it's about an hour long. And I cover a pretty good bit of ground talking about biochar and how it can be incorporated into your soil and help you build upon what you have, as a gardener. So give that a look if you like. You got anything to add, Rebecca, to what's going on around here this week on the homestead?
Other than it's hot,
mm-hmm.
and it's hard to want to be outside and take care of things, but you got to force yourself to be out there and look after the garden and pick what needs to be done and just tough it out.
Yeah. Yeah, it sucks, man. I'm ready for this kind of a little bit of a break. I think we're going to be getting a break moving forward. I'm actually going to be leaving this weekend and going up to Oregon. I've got a race that I'm going to be running, and it's only expected to be, I think they said it's going to be like 92 or something like that, which will be pretty nice. That'll be like a cool day compared to what it's been. I mean, it's been just not good around here, but yeah, agreed. So let's get into Q&A for the week. See what we got. I got a few questions here. And yeah, this one's from Lurker930. And he said, I'm working on a composting chicken yard and I'm getting a lot of flies. Do you have that issue? How do you deal with it? I have about 8 to 10 inches of wood chips in this chicken yard. And I said, yeah, flies are an issue on the homestead whenever you have livestock. And I use a few fly traps, which really help. The ones that I actually use and really helps to reduce the fly load and pretty effective is I buy them directly from Home Depot, and they're just like a bag, like a kind of a plastic bag, and they've got some kind of an odorant on the inside of it. And then you cut the top out, add water, and then hang the little bag. And I catch thousands of flies with that. You know, they're stinky. They smell
very stinky.
Yeah, they smell bad, but you know, that's what attracts the flies to come in and then get in there. And it really does help to reduce the fly load. You can also buy those like directly on Amazon or stuff like that. And then there's other brands out there, of course, but you know, that's just the one that I use. They're about $6, which they raised the price from last year. They were about $5 a piece. And yeah, they're not cheap, but they are super effective. And another thing that, you know, people can do to try to minimize that is just getting rid of, you know, the bedding that you have so that it's not, you know, accumulating so much where you're getting, you know, a tremendous amount of fly load. If you deep mulch in that environment, it's going to be pretty beneficial. So, you know, as the manure comes in, that's going to attract flies. Obviously, if you bring in more bedding to, you know, cap that, it's going to help to reduce, in some regards, the flies that are going to be attracted to that. It's not going to reduce the eggs that have already been laid in that manure in the deep mulch. They're still going to hatch, and then the flies are going to, you know, come out and whatnot. But yeah, that's essentially what, you know, I do. And it's just an inherent problem that, you know, most places deal with. The next question I had was, let's see here. Okay, this one is, let's see here. I don't know if that's the right one. Okay, this next one also deals with flies, and it was a question that I got like just about 6 hours ago from a video that was posted more than a year ago. And we're asking what is fly strike, because I had made a comment on there because somebody had said, hey, do you deal with fly strike? And my initial response to that was that I haven't dealt with fly strike with chickens, at least while we've been living here. We've seen it in, you know, years past, but I haven't dealt with that here. But I have dealt with it, you know, with cattle. It's something that is inherent in, can affect sheep and other livestock. And essentially what fly strike is it's just flies will lay their eggs on like manure that's accumulated on either chickens underneath where their vent is, where, you know, it could be on the backside of a cow. If they've got loose manure, they can get flies attracted to that, and then they can have maggots on their skin. Maggots generally don't eat skin that isn't necrotic. They're going to be attracted to dead skin cells. And so if you have open wounds, that's something that's going to be very susceptible to fly strike. So you want to really try to limit it as far as making sure that your animals are staying clean hygienically. So if you do have that kind of thing, you're going to want to make sure you do everything that you can to eliminate, excess manure being built up, or if you have any injuries, obviously they're going to be very susceptible to that. I can recall when I was a kid, we had this, I used to raise blue heeler cattle dogs. And my folks, they were actually their dogs, but they allowed me to sell the pups. And so we had quite a number of dogs. And then along with our cows, they'd sometimes get out and they'd want to chase the cows and nip at their heels. Well, they got out one time and they nipped at a couple of the calves that we had out there, and the calves weren't able to get away from them, and it opened up wounds on their hocks. And then those hocks were, they basically had fly strike on the back of their hocks, which was super disgusting because you've got, maggots feeding on the back of live animals, but they're feeding on that necrotic open wound, dead tissue. And so, that's what fly strike is. And I thought I had one other question, but let me see if I can find it. Yeah, I guess I don't have any other, but I'll get to the weekly poll for this week. And the weekly poll, I asked a question and I asked, what do you grow? And I was referring to which type of garden do you grow? Is it a winter garden, summer garden, no garden, or do you grow both? And I had 147 people that responded, and it was pretty close, quite honestly, with regard to summer and both. But it broke down as follows. Those that were only growing a winter garden said 1%. So only 1% were growing just specifically a winter garden. Summer garden, there was 43% of the respondents said they grew just a summer garden. And then both a winter and summer garden was 42%. And then 14% of the people said that they didn't grow any garden. And so, I always make the assumption, I think it's probably a wrong assumption, that whenever I put polls out, or the people that happen to come across my content on the channel, you always make the assumption that people are doing the same things you're doing. And it's, I guess, not an eye-opener, but it is refreshing to know that there's people of all different types that are, some people don't garden at all, but yet they like following homesteading content. And so I think it's really important. What we do here is we do both. We live in a very temperate zone. We live in a zone where we don't get hard freezes. And so it's beneficial for us to be able to grow mostly year-round specific crops. And it's super important from the standpoint of building your soil, because the more that you can keep a living root in your soil, it's going to be better for the soil and its overall development. I will say that if you're not growing something in the summer or the winter for that matter, typically it's the winter that doesn't get, maybe something that you're growing for a lot of people because they've got very harsh winters. But if you do, it's pretty good idea if you can do something to protect that soil so that you're not just leaving it exposed to the elements and it's going fallow. So cover it with some pallet sheets, cover it with some wood mulch, cover it with something that hasn't been treated with, some kind of a long-lasting herbicide that's going to have a detrimental effect. A lot of things. That's one of the reasons why I don't use straw here. Straw is a very popular mulch that people use. They go down to the feed store and they'll buy a bale of straw, but a lot of those, straws have been sprayed with herbicide. And that's one of the reasons why that straw is so clean. There's no other weeds in it. Have you ever noticed that? And there's a reason why. It's because they've sprayed that herbicide, and what they're growing there is resistant to that herbicide. And that's why you get, straw like that. So, but keep your soil covered. It's very, very important. So thanks for that. Thanks for that response. Do you have the Did You Know for this week, Rebecca?
I do. Did you know that homesteading was declared in 1862? So anyone was allowed to track 160 acres, but most had to live, but you had to live on the land for 5 years for it to be considered yours. After 5 years, the land was yours. So homesteading was a difficult life. Summer often hot, winter cold, droughts and insects ruined crops. In 1884, huge swarms of grasshoppers ate all of the crops. There was much to learn, and learn they did.
Yeah. So I actually knew about that, quite honestly, because I looked at, what was the history of homesteading, and I actually knew that. But you said it was in 1864.
1864 was when that act was.
Right. And so they got
And it-
basically, I think it was a quarter section, which is like 160 acres, right?
Mhm.
And so they had to live on it for 5 years. Yeah, that's kind of interesting, I suppose. Thank you for that. What's up, Sylvia Gibson? How are you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, cool. We're going to jump right into the main topic. And tonight's main topic is it's going to be kind of a collection of issues ranging from cultural values to societal changes and some political observations. Yeah, we're good. Thank you. And I just want to start, I guess, by saying that we just had the 4th of July. And one of the things that I was thinking about, I was actually out mowing the lawn, and I really started to think about, the men and the women of the armed forces who are asked to defend this country with their lives. And I also started to think about it a little bit more deeply and think about, the families of those people. And, there's really only a couple of days that we have that are dedicated to the people that provide our freedoms. We're looking at Veterans Day, Memorial Day. I think there's Armed Services Day, and the 4th of July, if you want to include that holiday in there as being something that's kind of patriotic and, supports our freedoms. But yeah, I was just thinking about it, and, without the sacrifice that those families and those servicemen and women have, made for us, I suppose. I think it's important to think about those holidays and reflect upon, why those holidays exist, and don't just look at them as if there are another day off from work or another chance to barbecue and drink beer and watch fireworks. And so I don't know, I had a different perspective on the 4th of July this year. And I started thinking about that because a lot of times what I think these families who have lost a loved one deal with is what they get in return is a folded up flag and they have a picture that they have on their mantle of their loved one. And, I don't know. I just think there's not enough effort, quite honestly, to avoid conflict these days. And there was a president who once said, older men declare war, but it's the youth that must fight and die. And there's a lot of truth in that. And that person was Herbert Hoover,
Mm-hmm.
So anyhow, what kind of made me also think about that while I was thinking about it is there's a guy who I listen to quite a bit. I'm sure some of you may listen to him, PDB, Patrick Bet David. He's got a great podcast. He's a super motivational, smart guy, very, very accomplished. And he was talking about this on his podcast a few weeks back and highlighting the fact that we have a number of holidays that exist for celebrating LGBTQ, the lesbian and gay community.
XYZ.
Yeah. And I mean, numerous holidays throughout the year. And I think the number he came up with was over 100, but I looked into it and what I came up with was like 56 because there was 26 specific holidays that I found just looking it up on ChatGPT. And then there's an entire month. The entire month of June is dedicated to that Pride Month deal. So there's 56 days there, which I think, good for them. But where are the holidays celebrating things like traditional marriage? And so I asked ChatGPT, I said, how many holidays are there celebrating traditional marriage? And the answer that I got back said, while there isn't a specific holiday exclusively dedicated to celebrating traditional marriage, couples often commemorate their union on their wedding anniversary. Additionally, National Spouses Day, January 26, provides an opportunity to cherish your marriage, reflect on your relationship, and remember why you said I do. And so, I don't know. What's your thoughts on that, Rebecca? I mean, should we have so many holidays celebrating an alternative lifestyle that's one generally of, something that isn't widely practiced by the majority of people in this country? Should we have that many days dedicated to something like that?
I would say no. That's my personal opinion. I honestly, what you do in your bedroom, in your home, that's where it should stay, regardless if you're straight, you're bi, you're whatever. Not everybody needs to know that. You need to keep that to yourself. And then to Sylvia, I also have a folded flag.
Yeah, that sucks, man. I just saw that. So right there, Sylvia Gibson, I got that folded flag. Yeah, condolences. It's a terrible thing to happen to any family who loses a loved one in the service of their country. I mean, thank them for their service, obviously. But unfortunately, a lot of the conflicts that occur, some of them are less justified than others, right? And so, I don't know. I know that if it happened to my child or family member, or grandchild or whatever, right? It's going to leave a closer, connection to the whole thing. And so, I don't know. Yeah, my condolences. That sucks. So getting back to what you were saying, Rebecca, I don't think that people should have to keep who they are hidden. I'm not of that mindset. I think that people should be able to express who they are, and I have no problem with that. What I have a problem with is the fact that if you don't support something, if you say, hey, I don't agree with that, then it's a problem for those people. It's no longer that they just want to be accepted or left alone. They now want you to accept their lifestyle. And for me, that's a problem. I don't want to be forced to do anything, particularly not something that I don't share as what I believe is important as far as a value. So I don't agree that people should keep things to themselves. They should be who they want to be, but just don't put that onto other people, or don't try to influence, in an inappropriate way. I mean, you wouldn't want to be out there swinging your junk in front of kids, So in that sense, keep it to yourself, right?
Right. Well, I guess that's what I mean. I'm not saying that they need to be somebody different, but you don't have to put me down because I want to be straight because you are not, and I should see it your way. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's correct.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that don't force your beliefs upon me. Just do what you do, and I'm okay with that. I don't have to agree with it, but it's society's being forced in some way to accept an alternative lifestyle that a majority of people don't agree with. When you have 56 days or more celebrating an alternative lifestyle, one generally of a sexual nature, that's one that the bond between a man and a woman, if that didn't exist, their ability to celebrate their lifestyle wouldn't be possible because they wouldn't be here. And so, I asked the question, how many holidays in the United States celebrate motherhood? And this is what ChatGPT had to say. It said, in the United States, Mother's Day is the primary holiday dedicated to celebrating motherhood. It occurs annually on the second Sunday of May. This special day recognizes mothers, maternal bonds, and their positive contributions to families and society. It's a time to honor moms, grandmothers, moms-in-law, and all motherly figures. Great. That's fantastic. Do we need more holidays to celebrate mothers? I don't think so, quite honestly. I think it's something that people should just want to automatically do, is honor your mother and honor your father, right? We don't need a day specifically or any more days to go out there and do that. But I think there's an obvious disparity when motherhood and fatherhood is not celebrated, but yet there's over 56 days in 300 out of 365 days that we're supposed to celebrate all these other things, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And it's ridiculous that they're really pushing it on the kids, because kids don't really know when they're young. They need to be allowed to be themselves and not say, oh, you really should be this or you really should be that.
Yeah.
They'll decide.
Sure.
They'll know.
Sure. Yeah, that's just my thoughts on that particular issue. But it kind of tied into when I started thinking about the 4th of July and veterans and, the losses and sacrifices and all these things and how many days those people are celebrated. It's not even anywhere close. There's 4 days of people who've defended our freedoms and given their lives, paid the ultimate price. But yet now we've got over 50 some holidays to celebrate some alternative lifestyle that most people don't agree with. I don't know. I just think that there's kind of an upside down thing there. And I think the real problem is the fact that they're just trying to force it upon people. You're seeing it in all the stores and you're seeing it in every place you go. Oh, pride this, pride that. Well, yeah, I've got pride,
Mm-hmm.
I've got pride in who I am. People should have pride, but to captivate or to capture that word and to now turn it into something that's gay or alternative, it's kind of weird. Anyhow, let's flash forward. This was about the present, the past, and the future. So let's flash forward. And, one of the things that...
Thank you for agreeing with me, Sylvia.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I asked, the computer, I said, what will be the biggest change occurring in the United States by 2045? And this is what it said. It said, certainly by the year 2045, one of the most significant changes in the United States will be its demographic composition. According to projections, whites will become a minority, dropping below 50% of the U.S. population. Here are a couple of key trends. It says whites as a proportion of the population will decrease, while minority racial groups will continue to grow. Hispanics in particular are expected to be a major engine of demographic change, contributing significantly to population growth. By 2045, whites will no longer be the majority, marking a significant shift in the country's racial makeup. The U.S. population will continue to age. The proportion of Americans aged 65 and older will increase from 15% to 24% by 2045. So I don't know. What's your thoughts on that, if you have any?
I kind of agree with that analysis, in that we have fewer people out there having kids. There are more people coming into our country that, legal or illegal, who are having children.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't take control and want to educate and further prosper everyone, I guess, that lives in this country, we will diminish. Yes.
Well, are you referring to like whites, or you're talking about
Well,
we? What do you mean?
Well, I'm referring to whites.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. That's just it's a thing that's happening, I guess. And as you know, to your point.
Well, see, I think that one of the big things that's being put out there is, oh, you're young, go out, go have fun. You can always have children later. You can always work later. And it kind of sets people up for failure.
Yeah.
And I think that that's actually taking a hold of a lot of our younger population.
Yeah, but that should go across racial lines, should it not? Or is that only affecting white people? I mean, yeah, I know that's a factor as far as
there are, but I think that there's other groups that maybe look at it a little bit smarter, and whites are taking kind of a dumber look.
Maybe that's a possibility. I know that illegal immigration has a big, role in that. They're letting people in who are coming from different ethnic backgrounds. They're not, white European or, people that are actually from this country reproducing. The population replacement rate is declining. That's just a reality. It's not even reaching parity. It's not even at 2.1, which is what it needs to be at parity. It's below that. And so in that, you're going to have less people having children. So that's a problem. If people of any particular ethnicity have an issue with that, they should get on the fucking ball and start having kids, because some of these other ethnic groups are actually going out and having a lot of kids because it's a cultural thing, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that things have changed in this country to the extent that, we have birth control. We have, I'm only going to have 2 fucking kids now. When back in the day, man, people were having 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 kids. And things have just changed with regard to how people are looking at that. But other people coming from other countries are probably going to outpace them as far as, reproducing. And so that's one of the aspects of it. What I would say is, what I think is important is not really the ethnic makeup specifically. I think what's important is a person's character and what they bring to the table. Are they somebody who's going to contribute meaningfully to society? Because I'm very much in the belief, and I agree with Martin Luther King when he talks about judging a person based on their content of their character rather than the color of their skin. And I think that those are very wise words. They're words that I live by. And I look at people for what they say and what they do. And I don't always look at just who they are from a first glance visual representation. And so, I don't know, man, that's an interesting thing. And I think a lot of people are going to be butthurt over the fact that there are these changes coming. But if we know that now and people have an issue with it, go out there and start making some babies, right?
Yeah. Well, I think there's other ethnic groups that really push the agenda of education and family and just getting your head on straight and prospering. Yeah. Where I believe that the white folks have done the reverse, have become more relaxed and push things out. Yeah. It's a weird, man, we're in a weird world right now. It's just things have changed. And we talked about this before because it seems weird to us because we've seen it a different way. We've realized we've lived in a country where we've seen, hey, it was different when we were kids, but the kids that are coming up now, this again is going to be their basis from which they draw. They're going to look at today, 2024, as the good old days. And that's the real problem, because things have been perverted in this country. The values and things that, people used to really cherish and hold dear. And we used to be able to have conversations with people we disagreed with politically. But that no longer really exists. And I think it's important to have those types of conversations so that if we're not talking to one another, if we're not expressing our true feelings and ideas,
what are we doing? Right? We're not engaging in society. And I think it's so important. We've lost a lot of that, right? Totally. People are just all about the device and all about, interacting in that way. And that's where I've seen that huge shift when Twitter came along, when, Instagram came along, and it actually really accelerated from Obama to Trump. When Trump came in, then it was like everything went like ballistic because the other side fights so hard. The other side will fight to the death, right? And they'll lie to your face and tell you you're the racist, you're the problem. Meanwhile, if they looked in the mirror, they'd be talking to themselves. And that's just the way they play ball. I've heard it say before that the Republicans they're content with second place, right? They're content with just pulling up and getting silver. They're not in it to win it. And there's a lot of truth to that because we've got people on Capitol Hill, we've got people in our state houses that don't play like the other side. The other side will fucking cut your tongue out and feed it to you. It's an interesting thing right now to watch. And we're all spectators, aren't we? Mm-hmm. Let's see here. Old Braid's in the house. Hey, man, what's up? Says, y'all rock. Highly recommend listening to the book, The End of the World is Just the Beginning. It goes over population and how the current global birth rate is in bad shape. Yeah, it is, man. It is globally. It's a real problem. I've looked into that. And, the United States isn't leading the way there. California's leading the way. And I'm going to talk about that here in just a minute. But let's see here. Current birth rate will not meet societal needs in the next 20 years. There are now more folks over 65-year-olds than there are under 5-year-olds. Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting thing, man. And I think it just all boils down to cultural. It all boils down to, what the next generation is getting at home. And I know you're doing the right thing, obviously. But there's so many people that aren't. There's so many people that aren't engaged in their kids' lives. And there's so many people that aren't teaching them the right things and passing that on. And so therefore, we're going to get what we get moving forward in society. California is full of a lot of things, man. Let me tell you, California, yeah, full of non-citizens. Yeah, we've got a lot of non-citizens here. Mm-hmm. But you know what? Everywhere else has them too, because what they're doing is these NGOs are being opened up in places where they're going to try to make change to the demographics. It's going to change the, how the apportionment works for voting. That's their long game. They're going to change that. And so when seats are being allocated for, Congress and stuff like that, the population has changed, thereby making it in their favor. And so they're setting these places up in a lot of other places that they don't have really an issue, or they have an issue as far as trying to turn that into a blue state. Some of these battleground states, they're putting these things in place in Georgia and, some of the other places that are a little bit, either or. But yeah, you left Sacramento. Sacramento's in bad shape. It really is. It's quite, there's nice places. Don't get me wrong. Every place has nice places because, it's just the way it is. But there's a lot of things that is wrong with Sacramento for sure.
Their water.
I've
always hated their water.
Yeah, it's pretty gross. Anyhow, let's get into something that's happening currently, the present. And I looked in to see what the top 10 cities are with the worst homeless population. And here's how it rang out. And I want you to think about, is there a common thread with any of these larger cities or areas? Here's how that list goes. Top 10. Washington, D.C., San Francisco, California, Portland, Oregon, Los Angeles County, California, Seattle, Washington, New York City, New York, Las Vegas, Nevada, San Diego, California, Boston, Massachusetts, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So what do you say, Rebecca? Is there any consistency there you can see? Because I like to look at things from the standpoint of, asking why certain things do what they do, right? I like to know the behind the scenes. Why is that the way that it is?
Well, I would say that they are all liberal states. If not completely, they are liberal leaning. And right now, unfortunately, they are not driving us in the right direction. So that's what I feel about it. California definitely has a problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
And they just want to turn a blind eye. It's kind of unfortunate. Like if we're in the Bay Area and you're on the highway driving down, you can see the homeless camps,
Mm-hmm.
people getting off the intersections who live up in the hills. They just drive past it, till they get to their pretty little homestead and just turn a blind eye to it.
Yeah. Yeah. What's up, Tag? How are you doing, man? Hope things are well with you and B out there in the great Midwest. But good to see you tonight, man.
Hi, Tag.
Sylvia says that before you speak, or wait a minute, right here. Before you speak, I guess their Democrat ran. Well, yes, that is the consistent theme with those particular cities. And, I wonder if the people who actually live in those cities and vote the way they do, if they're actually happy with the results that they're getting from their leadership. Because cities don't turn that way, but for one reason, and it's the people that are actually running policy. And so the people of that city are actually voting for the people that are making their cities decline. Maybe those folks actually like living in a place where there's a large homeless population, but I kind of doubt it, quite honestly.
Well, and for us, we've seen the beauty of San Francisco and the intersections and actually being gorgeous because Eric's father was in charge of maintaining a lot of the gardening. And so when you would get off the intersections, they were just beautifully manicured.
Yeah.
And now they're horrible.
Oh, it's atrocious, man. My dad actually had from Corte Madera all the way down to the Golden Gate Bridge. So right there on the other side of the Waldo Tunnel, right where it went to the Vista Point at Golden Gate Bridge, that was my dad's entire area of landscaping for about 15 years before he moved up further north. But when he had that, it looked freaking amazing. And it was beautiful. He had it very nicely done. And you drive down there now and there's just trash and papers and
Weeds.
Weeds coming up through all the stuff that's supposed to be, like looking good. And it's, you're talking about people that live in some of the highest, as far as the money, the earnings that are down there. We're talking Marin County, San Francisco County. All of those areas are people very affluent, but yet they have no problem driving right by all that filth and getting up into their little enclave up on the hill. I kind of wish, and this is never going to happen, but I kind of wish homeless people would actually start going to those places, because that would actually force some kind of change. That would get people to say, you know what, we're not okay with this. But it's okay if those people stay in other communities or in down at the stoplight. That's why they roll their window down, so that they can give them $5 so they don't come up the fucking street to go to their house. They want to keep them right where they're at on the corner. And so they keep rolling their window down every time they pass and give them a $5 or $20 when they're standing out there with their gas can or their cardboard sign. It's not that they care about people. It's just that they want to keep people in their place. And that's kind of an unfortunate thing, man, but I see it and I'm willing to talk about it. If it rubs people the wrong way, that's fine. But these are conversations I think need to be had because I don't hear them coming from a lot of politicians. They should be just as pissed off as everybody else that has to step over homeless people when they go into the store. We've got a lot of homeless people in this town that I live in, and it didn't used to be that way. Why is that? Interesting, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not because of high cost of living. Yeah, it's been high for a long time here in California. But we didn't have people like by the thousands living under every bridge in town. It's just an interesting thing. So, wasn't it Newsom who cleaned up part of San Francisco when the Chinese official? Of course it was.
Yeah, a couple blocks.
Yeah, I think it was about 7 blocks where they ran all the hobos out. And then they put up, barricades and stuff, and they prettied it all up, brought in little planter boxes and whatnot. And yeah, they brought old Xi in from China, and Newsom got to play big shot and say, look at my beautiful city. But right around the corner, there's people shitting on the street and it smells like urine. So, yes, you're correct. It was Newsom, which, by the way, you all are going to keep hearing about that guy. And one thing I never really want people to forget is he's been very instrumental in having California lead the way. And I think it's important to never forget that California leads the way in the nation. It's number one in the amount of homeless people that live in this country. California has 28% of the nation's homeless population. I don't think Newsom's doing anything to reverse that. Also, too, ironically, in 2022, California had nearly 74,000 people die from fentanyl overdoses, which ironically also accounts for 28% of the total deaths in the nation. So more than a quarter of the people that have died from fentanyl in 2022 came from California. So yes, we're number one. We also lead the nation. And this is just as of May 2024. California had the highest unemployment rate in the United States with a unemployment rate of 5.2%. So yay, California yet again. Thanks,
Woo-hoo.
Gavin Newsom, right? And here's another one that I think that Newsom's going to have a hard time getting out from under, at least in the short term. But see, here's my thought on this is that I think people are pretty easily led. I think that people forget things. They don't remember things from the past very well, and so they'll be easy to pull the lever for somebody who's taken this state from just 3 years ago having $100 billion surplus to now a $68 billion deficit. We've got nearly $70 billion deficit in our budget in California under Gavin Newsom's watch. And so I really only bring this up, not because I'm getting people to try to get excited about moving to this great state. I'm more interested in just not having people ever forget what this person has done and what kind of politician he's been, because I will tell you this, he's not going away.
No, he's definitely slated to be president. And I've said to you, I seriously don't think that is happening this go round. But as you said, people are easy to forget.
Mm-hmm.
And so in 4 years, I wouldn't be surprised if his name is not on the ballot.
Yeah, of course. I mean, he's not carrying water as a surrogate right now, like he's doing, making these appearances and different campaign stops all over for Biden. He's not carrying Biden's water and being a good soldier because there's not something in it for him. You know, he knows that, his time is going to come. And so I just want other people that may listen to this, that might listen or think that, oh boy, he's a good looking dude. Got nice looking hair, nice smile, says some pretty cool stuff. He doesn't sound like Trump, or he doesn't sound like this person. He doesn't sound like Biden. He's glib. Don't forget what this guy has done. And if you want the rest of the country to start to mirror California, there's your guy. right?
Yeah.
California leading the way. Anyhow, that was kind of a rant. Sorry, guys. Just having a little rant. Let's see here. Reminds me of the mafia. Yeah, politics is very much like that. It's a dirty game. The more you learn about it, the more you realize what these people are all about. It really opens your eyes. There's a lot we could talk about on that. One of the other things I actually looked into as well, because I wanted to look a little bit further into the future. And I know that they've been talking about this for a while. I know that PepsiCo, I know that UPS, I know that Walmart, and this is as of like a few years ago, had placed orders for hundreds of the new Tesla electric big rigs. And, back then, I'm still thinking, God, that seems so far away. That's not going to happen anytime soon. And they got a lot of bugs and kinks to work out. And yes, they do. But technologically, things are moving so fast in this country. It's kind of hard to imagine that it's not up and running in the next few years. We're already seeing the self-driving cars out there doing their thing. And they're going down the wrong streets sometime, getting pulled over by cops because they're like, going the wrong way or whatever. They'll get the bugs worked out. But, that's something that's coming in the future. And I looked up how many truck drivers there are because I knew that it was a very large percentage of jobs. And it's an industry that puts a lot of food on a lot of tables, feeds a lot of families. And what I came up with, it said there's more than 3.5 million people that work as truck drivers. And I didn't know it was quite that large, but that's a lot of people. And if you think about it, anytime you go down the road, anytime you go down the interstate, I'd say probably 30 to 35%, maybe more at different times of the day and in different areas, are big rigs. Mm-hmm. So it's not unfathomable that there aren't 3.5 million people that work as truck drivers. That's got to be one of the largest blue collar jobs in this entire nation. And so when these people are replaced, where are they going to go? What are they going to do? I guess they'll have to find something, as most people do when their jobs are lost. They have to go and be retrained and do something else. But that's a lot of blue collar jobs, man.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah. And so this is what they estimate by the year 2045. Autonomous trucks are expected to significantly impact the trucking industry. And, numbers generally range and they vary, but a 2024 study suggested that if self-driving trucks were deployed across the entire United States, up to 94% of the operator hours, which is going to be equivalent to about 500,000 truck driver jobs, could be affected. And so they're saying that by 2045, but I almost think that it would probably, once they get the technology online, it's going to be more jobs than that. And it's probably going to happen quicker than 2045 based on what I'm seeing, right? What do you think? Yeah,
but I think it's going to be affecting more than just truck drivers. There's so many jobs that say our teenagers go out and do their baristas, or they're flipping hamburgers, or and they're going to be out of work.
Oh yeah. With respect to artificial intelligence, it's gonna change a lot, man. They have actually autonomous, McDonald's and stuff out there. I've seen that on TikTok, where they drive up and they basically just talk to this thing, and then they pull up to the window and their order like comes out. Mm-hmm. They're not even a person in there. I think there is a person like making sure that stuff's working, but they're not the ones making the burgers. And so that's kind of where we're headed. I think it makes sense from the standpoint of the business itself, because you don't have to worry about some lame calling in sick or giving you some lame ass excuse why they can't be to work. Right. Mm-hmm. Same with stores. Once they eliminate your ability to even go in and interact with a person. And all you have to do is scan your thumbprint to get in the door. And then whatever you pick up gets charged to your card.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Oh, I don't like it either. But you know what? It's already happening. I've seen stores like that where they've had in Europe. There's places like that in airports in this country right now where you just swipe your shit and you go in, you pick it up off the thing, you walk out, and it's going to just going to put it right on your card. And you have to actually swipe your stuff just to even get in first. And that's where we're going. And it totally makes sense because people are stealing stores blind, left and right, just walking out with stuff.
The other thing I don't like,
or excuse me, when they're swiping, they're just like faking it. You know, they're doing the self-checkout and they're faking it and they're not even ringing stuff up. So stores are losing, you know, millions, if not billions of dollars through theft. It's just a thing now, right? Because they're not prosecuting it. So AI is definitely going to be a thing. And like it or not, you know, our kids, our grandkids are going to be, it's going to be commonplace. Yeah. So anyhow, I didn't mean to cut you off. What were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say, I don't like tapping the card. And I prefer not to use the card if I can. It really frustrates me when I go into a place and they say, oh, we don't take cash. We only take cards.
Yeah. It's, card only, no cash. But that's where we're headed. And you either opt out in some way or comply with what the directive is. So here's kind of a did you know, guys. This is a bonus did you know. And this is staying on presidential politics because there's an awful lot of talk about things that are happening in the presidency right now. And I got to be honest, I never really thought that this is the curveball that I would be seeing as related to the media that's been supporting and making excuses for a president for the last 3.5 years has completely flipped the script in the last week since their debate and now decided he's got to go. And so it's kind of weird because, you know, you would think that they'd have more compassion for him because he's obviously a man who's been compromised mentally. And I don't even know if he realizes how bad he looks or, you know, the fact that he is going to be replaced. He's out there trying to fight and to do the things and they keep trotting him out. And, you know, the media is just allowing him to, you know, just bury himself. And I never thought I'd see that, but I will say that there's going to be more curveballs. I think that there's going to be some things we see coming that we didn't anticipate because this election means very much. That means so much to the other side, I think, to the left. They, at all costs, they don't even care if Biden was, you know, completely a corpse because he's not running anything anyhow. Everything that he does is prepared for him. And, you know, it's all scripted. He's not the one who's truly running things in the government. So
he is. But what I've said to you several times is that what wife encourages their husband, and you know mentally he's not capable of going out there and reading anything, encourages him to do that. Do you have a heart? Do you care?
Yeah, I know. We were saying that a couple of weeks ago, and now everybody's talking about what an evil person she is and everything. And yeah, you know, I don't know, man. It's elder abuse. It's
total elder abuse.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, actually. I mean, I don't feel any real empathy for Joe Biden, unfortunately, because he's such an, I believe, corrupted person. I think that he has very evil intent because he's in a position of power, yet he wields that power in such a way where he doesn't care as much about the average person as he does about his political ambition and his winning at all cost. You know, and I think the thing that's most, I think I'm most encouraged about this whole deal is the fact that I think more people's eyes will be open to the fact that, oh, wow, they've been lying to us. The media, which I trusted for all of the things that I've done in the last 4 years, They actually were lying at it, because just last week they were saying he's nothing wrong with him. And now they've all said there's something wrong with him. So more and more people will kind of come around to thinking and believing what many of us have felt and believe and known for years. They're just taking a little bit longer to get caught up to speed. But I think that's one of the true shining silver linings of this whole deal. But I don't feel bad for Joe Biden. I don't think the guy's a very good guy, quite honestly.
Well, I think this is trying to point out, for me, Jill's character, actually.
Yeah, she's not a great person. So let me get to that. Did you know? And again, this stays on presidential politics. Did you know that the youngest person to become U.S. president was Theodore Roosevelt, who took office at the age of 42 after the assassination of William McKinley? And now on the flip side of that, did you know the oldest person in U.S. history to become president was Joe Biden, who at 78, he took office as the 46th president of the United States. And so now I think he is currently, 81 or 82 or something like that. If he were to be reelected, he'd be, that's just ludicrous. Mm-hmm. But nonetheless, there's plenty of videos going around showing, Biden in his declined state. And I don't want to pile on to that, guys. I don't want to be just another, I guess, live stream or podcast showing you our declining president. I would actually much prefer to show an image of Joe back when he had his shit together. And I want you to listen very closely to what he says, because that's what I try to do. I try to listen to what people say, because a lot of times what they say, it can give you a glimpse and a window into what they're going to actually do. And this is some things that Joe said back when he was a young senator. And the thing that I want you to pay attention to is they've been telling us in the media, oh, he's got this lifelong stutter. Well, I've listened to some of Joe Biden from back in the day. He was sharp, man. He had his shit together. And then think about what he sounds like today. But listen to this clip right here and pay attention to a few of these things.
Biden, it's nice to have you here as the youngest member of the Senate, the one, therefore, who may expect the longest career there. I wonder if you'd say to us, since it's clear that you're not corrupt and you got elected, why should people think that the system produces corrupt results when there you are?
Well, I'm not sure you should assume I'm not corrupt, but thank you for that, though. The system does produce corruption, and I think implicit in the system is corruption, when in fact, whether or not you can run for public office, and it costs a great deal of money to run for the United States Senate, even from a small state like Delaware, you have to go to those people who have money, and they always want something. We were told that we politicians, as the young kids say, rip off the American public. I think the American public, in a way, rips off we politicians by forcing us to run the way they do. To raise $300,000 is no mean feat. And unless you happen to be some sort of anomaly, like myself, being a 29-year-old candidate and can attract some attention beyond your own state, it's very difficult to raise that money from a large group of people. I'm a 29-year-old oddball. The only reason I was able to raise the money is I was able to have a national constituency to run for office. Because I was 29, I'm like the token black or the token woman. I was the token young person. I went to the big guys for the money. I was ready to prostitute myself in the manner in which I talk about it. But what happened was they said, come back when you're 40, son.
Yeah. So it's quite a bit to unpack there, I guess he thinks he's, on par with being a token woman or a token black. He states that he's ready to prostitute himself because he knows how dirty and corrupt the system is, but he wasn't invited into the party until much later. They told him to come back when he was 40. He starts out by saying, don't assume that I'm not corrupt. Maybe he was kidding, but maybe he was speaking from a place of truth, because I think that in order to be in politics for damn near 50 years and to be a 29-year-old senator, 28-year-old senator, and to carry the water for all those years, to sit on all those committees, you have to be corrupt. to become a nobody and then be a very wealthy man from his business dealings as a politician politicians don't make anything? Well, he said it himself. He had to go to the big guys. And it's interesting because that's kind of what he was referred to as the big guy. Remember that in that whole Hunter Biden laptop thing? The money was for the big guy, such. So it's just kind of interesting that, but he was a very well-spoken guy. And I could see why he rose to the level that he did. But it's also interesting that he's now president after a number of failed attempts. He never got more than about 1% of the vote to even be the nominee. But they finally decided, oh, yeah, I guess you're the guy. You were the VP. So now we're going to run you up the flagpole because you're a malleable puppet and you'll do what we say. And we can run this shadow government and we can hide you for a long time. Well, guess what? They're not able to hide him anymore, and they flipped on his ass. It's kind of crazy to see, man. I actually never thought I'd see the media flip on Biden the way that they've done it. And they're only exposing themselves as a bunch of liars. But at the same time, they kind of have to do that because it was such a bad debate. It was so obvious to everyone, like, holy shit, what did we just see? Right?
Yeah.
That was crazy, right? Was it nuts? But anyhow.
It's amazing too. He didn't really stutter.
No, not at all. I've heard other things from Biden, and man, he's got his shit together. He was like a lawyer or something, right? So he's good at like getting up there and talking shit to people. And so he's good at that sort of thing, but he's no longer good at it. I mean, he just sits there and mumbles and, falls down, and he just looks pathetic. And that's not giving us great optics around the world. We need a strong leader. We need somebody who's going to be able to be a negotiator when they go abroad. And he's not the person to do that, So let me show you by contrast, though, because he's running it against another guy, another old guy, goes by the name of DJT, Donald Trump. And I think it's interesting because if you look and you hear what people have to say, even at their earliest thing, and I don't think he's really changed his message, because one of the things that I caught from the debate the other night was interesting is he was like, and I thought this was a really good line from him. He said, Joe, I wish you had been a great president. I wish you'd have been a great president so I didn't have to run. But you weren't a great president. You've done all these horrible things. Now I need to make America great again. And so I think that's interesting. But if you notice something about young Biden and young Trump, they were both quite handsome dudes, quite honestly. And they were both very well spoken. I don't know if they're both that way now, but check out young Trump. It's pretty badass.
Some people, the ultimate goal in life has been becoming the President of the United States. Would you like to be the President of the United States?
I really don't believe I would run it, but I would like to see somebody as the President who could do the job, and there are very capable people in this country.
Most people who are capable are not running for office. Most men are frightened of politics today.
It is a shame, isn't it?
Yes.
It is a shame. The most capable people are not necessarily running for political office, and that is a very sad commentary on the country. They had major corporations and they had this and that, but they are not running for political office.
Why wouldn't someone like yourself run for political office? You have all the money that you possibly need. You've accomplished a great deal, even though you are only 34. I know there's a lot of things that you possibly can do in the years ahead. Why wouldn't you dedicate yourself to public service?
Because I think it's a very mean life. I would love and I would dedicate my life to this country, but I see it as being a mean life, and I also see it as somebody with strong views and somebody with the kind of views that are maybe a little bit unpopular, which may be right, but may be unpopular, wouldn't necessarily have a chance of getting elected against somebody with no great brain but a big smile.
Yeah, I think he was pretty reluctant back then. I mean, I'm not going to say that he didn't have, political ambition from way back. I think most people who are, pretty high on themselves and egotistical could view themselves in that way. But I don't know if it was his lifelong ambition, quite honestly, much in the same way that probably Biden was, because Biden came from that world. But yeah, I just thought that was kind of an interesting glimpse into two young guys, a 34-year-old Trump saying what he's saying, and then a 28-year-old Biden saying what he's saying. Both of them, you could actually understand what they were saying, and they weren't angry or flying off the handle. So it was kind of refreshing.
Yeah, I've always said that when Trump was younger, he was as smooth talking as his children.
Yeah. Yep. And I guess, Sylvia, you're referring to Mr. Joseph R. He says, I have nothing nice to say about him. I can understand that sentiment. I think that everybody has something that's redeeming, as far as equality in some way. Sometimes it's harder to find it on some people. He's definitely somebody it's hard to find that redeeming quality, because, I just think that people that are that deeply entrenched into politics, they are corrupt, and they know that they're corrupt, and they don't care who they have to walk over to get there, because it's all about the advancement of their ideology and their political power. And it makes it hard to like a person like that, but when a person puts themselves out there and is willing to put themselves at risk for the benefit of others, I think it gives you a different impression. And I kind of feel that way about Trump. I think he could be just off doing his own thing, but he's been through a bunch of shit, man, to run for office. And partially it's because of his, he's an alpha, and he ain't backing down. But, thankfully he's doing that, because who would we have if we didn't have somebody like Trump? Fucking Rand Paul. Who's the next guy they're going to run, the next establishment guy? And Rand Paul, to his credit, he's somebody who's probably I align with more than anybody out there, because he speaks for himself. He's not going to just fly the company flag. But at the same time, people have been where they've been for years, and I don't like that. I think it's a job that should have term limits. It should be do your time and get on out. But anywho, let's see. I'm not buying it. Atreides says they all came out at the same time saying the same thing. Remember gravitas. Yeah, they're in lockstep, man. It was just a weird thing to see, though. I didn't really think that they were going to flip on him just that quick. And it's just weird to watch what's happening right now. I mean, there's no question about it. He will be replaced. They're not going to run him. He's not going to be defiant and, make it to the convention and everything. There'll be a way to get him out of there, because they're not trying to. They're jumping off the burning ship.
Yeah, after that debate, I'm positive that there's absolutely no way that he could go and do another debate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's going to try, I guess. I mean, it's just going to get worse for him, though, because he's not equipped. That's sad. So let's see where we are here. Cool. Well, let's get to that quote at the end, I guess, right? So, liberal or conservative? Antisocial behavior is a trait of intelligence in a world full of conformists. I'm going to just tell you who it is, because you're never going to guess. It's from Nikola Tesla. And if you don't know, Nikola Tesla was an inventor and visionary who had a nuanced perspective on both religion and politics. He was raised as a Serbian Orthodox, and he developed a personal philosophy akin to Buddhism, emphasizing unity and oneness. Tesla envisioned a world of peace and understanding, transcending political divisions. Rather than aligning with a specific party, he hoped for universal enlightenment to bring about lasting harmony. So based on that explanation of who he was, I would say that he wasn't somebody who was very politically connected. So I wouldn't say he was liberal or conservative. He was somebody who, hoped to go his own path. And I respect that.
Mm-hmm.
I think his view of what he hoped the world would be is one that is not based in reality. It's a well-meaning hope, and I don't not support that, but you got to live in the real world, man. And the reality with people, and they've always been this way, and they will always be this way, is we're tribal, right? We align with our people. And so based upon the fact that we are tribal, we're easy to divide, and we're easily motivated by fear, which plays very well into the two-party system that we currently have, because all you need to do is to divide the people based on cultural values. And that's why things like Roe versus Wade, things like, take your pick, abortion, right? Very controversial issues that a lot of times kind of divide people based on, religious faith and things like that. And when you start to do that, you force people into their camps. And that's why you can have somebody who's going to vote for a corpse because they believe the other side is so terrifying for what they're going to do. There's people that actually believe that if Trump gets in, he's going to ban abortion. And he hasn't said anything about that. There's people on the other side that actually believe that Trump's actually a racist, but yet nothing in his history's past would suggest that.
Well, he's already said it's back to the states. It's the states' decisions.
Yeah.
For how they want to handle that.
Right. So I don't know. It's just kind of interesting, that whole thing, man. Politics is a very, very interesting and dirty game. And the more that you actually think about what's going on and try to pay attention to what these people say, I think it's hard to overlook. It's one of those things where once you see it, it's kind of hard to unsee. And so that's kind of where I am with regard to the whole thing, because I learn more every time I see them say something, that they're exposing more of who they are. And I only think that's a good thing, because people should know who is leading them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I wanted to bring up this next clip. This will be the last clip of the evening. This is the clip of the week. And, along the theme of never forgetting, we should never forget. We should pay attention to what people say, because along with all those things I said earlier about us being easy to divide and motivated by fear, we're also very easily distracted by the next shiny object. And we forget very easily what people have said in the past. And I'm not going to let that happen, because I remember, and I'm going to point it out every chance I get. Let's see here. What's Tag got to say? It says suppressing the right side of the brain and eliminating creativity grows the left side and the conformist. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Deep, man. I love it. But true. So here's that clip, guys. And this is only a couple of years ago. And I'm sure that most of you will remember this. But also remember that the same people that are saying these things are saying this about the other side, because they're pointing the finger at the other side and saying, hey, that side is violent. They want to do these things. They're insurrectionists. They're this, they're that. And so when you listen to this, just think about who's saying it, and never let them forget this. Okay.
why there aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
There needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
You got to be ready to throw a punch. Well, you have to be ready to throw a punch.
Donald Trump, I think you need to go back and punch him in the face.
That I thought he should have punched him in the face.
Feel like punching him.
I'd like to take him behind the gym if I were in high school.
If we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
No, I wish we were in high school. I could take him behind the gym.
I will go and take Trump out tonight.
Take him out now. Okay.
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
And you push back on them, and you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
Please, get up in the face of some Congress people.
People will do what they do.
I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price.
We're going to go in there, we're going to...
This is just a warning to you Trumpers. Be careful. Walk lightly. And for those of you who are soldiers, make them pay.
If you had to be stuck in an elevator with either President Trump, Mike Pence, or Jeff Sessions, who would it be? Does one of us have to come out alive?
Yeah. So yeah, that's something I'll never want to forget is who's saying the things that they're saying the other side is saying, right? They're making these claims about people on the right, but yet people on the right are not doing these things. But it's easy when you have a compliant media that's going to cover up for the things that are being said and not making an issue about it. So I don't know. That's kind of a pretty heavy clip. And I know that was a pretty political rant this evening.
They look like adult children having temper tantrums.
Right. Right. I don't know. The thing that I think, guys, has been the biggest eye-opener for me in the last few years is I actually thought that other people, a majority of the people, would see it for what it was, and they would, not permit it to happen. But there's so many people that actually encourage that type of behavior. There's so many people that actually want to just overlook it and laugh. And that's kind of sad. But nonetheless, I don't want to leave you feeling sad. But I do need to get out and get some things done this evening. I want to thank everybody for showing up and hanging out for a few moments with us this evening. And you have anything else you want to add, Rebecca?
I don't think so. We still have chickens to be put up, dinner to be cooked, and our dog would love to go outside.
Right.
I don't know why.
Right. Anyhow, thanks guys for joining tonight, and we are going to get out. We'll see you next week and go out tomorrow and be better than you were today.
Thanks, guys.